Hello, New York Yankees fans. We have brand new exclusive videos and the latest news for you. Before we get started, we'd like to invite you to join our channel and give this video a like. It's crucial to get exclusive access to the latest updates. The rumors started the way these things always do around a massive franchise, with a whisper that felt too heavy to ignore and too explosive to be completely dismissed. Inside the corridors of the New York Yankees, people began to murmur that Aaron Boone had finally crossed an invisible line, not in front of cameras or microphones, but behind closed doors where the truth is usually louder and far less polite. According to what is being said, Boone's patience, stretched thin by weeks of internal friction, finally snapped during a tense clubhouse meeting. The phrase attributed to him spread like wildfire, with insiders claiming he spoke about two so-called cancers inside the locker room, suggesting that something rotten had been growing beneath the surface for a long time. In the world of professional baseball, especially within a franchise that treats tradition like religion, that kind of language carries enormous weight. It suggests desperation, exhaustion, and a manager who feels he is losing control of the narrative. Boone, a former player who understands clubhouse dynamics intimately, would not use such words lightly. That is why this rumor feels different. It paints a picture of a leader pushed into a corner, staring at a group that no longer responds to calm speeches or measured tones. It hints at fractures between veterans and younger players, between individual ambition and collective responsibility, and between public optimism and private frustration. For fans, this kind of story is irresistible because it suggests that what we see on the field is only a shadow of the chaos brewing behind the scenes. As the speculation deepened, the story took on layers that went beyond a simple outburst. People close to the situation began to suggest that Boone's alleged words were not aimed at performance alone, but at attitude, ego, and influence. In a clubhouse filled with strong personalities and massive contracts, the balance between leadership and entitlement is always fragile. The rumor implies that Boone identified two figures whose presence was poisoning the atmosphere, not necessarily through lack of effort, but through subtle behaviors that undermine unity. Maybe it was constant complaining, passive-aggressive comments, or a refusal to accept accountability. In a team like the Yankees, where every move is magnified and every slump becomes a headline, these behaviors can snowball quickly. Boone, known publicly for his calm demeanor and steady voice, is said to have reached a point where diplomacy felt useless. The idea that he would talk about eliminating these influences does not necessarily mean immediate roster moves, but it does suggest a willingness to bench, marginalize, or openly challenge players who were once considered untouchable. That is what makes this rumor so powerful. It frames Boone not as a passive manager carried by the current, but as someone ready to swim against it, even if it means confronting stars and risking backlash. For a franchise obsessed with control and image, such internal turmoil is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. What fuels this rumor even more is Boone's background as a former player who lived through multiple clubhouses with different cultures. Those who know his history say he has always valued chemistry and trust above individual brilliance. That is why the idea of him labeling anyone as a destructive force feels like a last resort. The speculation suggests that Boone tried everything before reaching this point, from private conversations to subtle lineup changes, hoping the message would land without turning into a public spectacle. But when nothing changed, frustration took over. Insiders describe a manager who felt betrayed by players who preached unity in front of cameras, but acted differently once the doors were closed. In this narrative, the clubhouse became a place of quiet division, where smiles masked resentment and polite words hid power struggles. Boone's rumored explosion then becomes less about anger and more about clarity, a moment where he decided to stop pretending everything was fine. Fans reading into this can almost imagine the tension in that room, the uncomfortable silence after harsh words were spoken, and the realization among players that something fundamental had shifted. Whether true or exaggerated, the rumor resonates because it aligns with a broader sense that this team is searching for its identity and struggling to find common ground. Another layer of speculation revolves around how the front office might react to such a dramatic stance from their manager. The Yankees are not just a baseball team. They're a global brand, and internal conflict threatens that carefully polished image. If Boone truly made such comments, even privately, it suggests he believes he has enough support from above to act decisively. Or, conversely, it could mean he feels abandoned and is lashing out in a final attempt to force change. The rumor mill paints executives weighing loyalty against pragmatism, wondering whether backing Boone's hardline will restore order or ignite further chaos. In this version of events, Boone becomes a symbol of resistance against complacency, while the so-called problematic players represent everything that has gone stale. Fans love this kind of storyline because it transforms a season into a drama filled with heroes, villains, and moral dilemmas. The idea of elimination does not necessarily mean trades or releases, but a stripping away of influence, a reshaping of hierarchy that sends a message to everyone else. It is about redefining what it means to wear that uniform, to step into that clubhouse, and to represent something larger than individual stats. The emotional impact of this rumor cannot be overstated, especially for a fan base that prides itself on toughness and accountability. Many supporters see Boone's alleged words as overdue honesty, a reflection of what they have been shouting from their couches for months. Others worry that such rhetoric signals a loss of control, a manager overwhelmed by circumstances. This split reaction mirrors the internal divide the rumor describes, making it feel even more plausible. The narrative suggests a turning point, a moment where things either come together or fall apart completely. Boone, in this speculative telling, stands at the center of the storm, aware that whatever happens next will define his tenure. The idea of two cancers being removed implies that healing is possible, but only after painful surgery. It is a brutal metaphor, but one that resonates in competitive sports where sentimentality often takes a back seat to survival. Whether this story is exaggerated or grounded in truth, it captures a raw emotion that feels authentic to anyone who has followed high-pressure teams long enough. As the whispers continue, some observers suggest that this situation could redefine Boone's public image. For years, he has been portrayed as measured, player-friendly, and loyal to a fault. This rumor flips that script, presenting a man willing to draw a hard line when pushed too far. In that sense, the story almost feels like a reinvention arc, a manager shedding his softer reputation in favor of authority. The speculation hints that players are now walking on eggshells, unsure who is being watched and what behavior might cross the line. That atmosphere alone could change dynamics, for better or worse. The power of the rumor lies in its ambiguity, offering just enough detail to feel real while leaving room for imagination. It invites fans to read between the lines, to interpret body language and press conference answers through a new lens. Every neutral comment suddenly feels loaded, every vague statement potentially concealing deeper conflict. And that is how a single alleged sentence can reshape an entire narrative around a team. In the second wave of speculation, the focus shifts from what Boone allegedly said to what he might do next, and that is where imaginations truly run wild. The idea of eliminating negative influences opens the door to countless possibilities, from unexpected lineup decisions to quiet disciplinary actions that never make headlines. Insiders speculate that Boone could start empowering lesser-known players, rewarding effort and attitude over reputation. This would be a subtle but powerful message, one that says no one is guaranteed anything simply because of past achievements. In this version of the story, practices become more intense, accountability more visible, and excuses less tolerated. Boone's rumored stance becomes a cultural reset, an attempt to rebuild the clubhouse from the inside out. Fans love to speculate about which players might be affected, but the rumor deliberately avoids names, adding to its mystique. It becomes less about individuals and more about principles. The message, as imagined by those spreading the story, is that the Yankees must return to a mentality where the name on the front of the jersey matters more than the one on the back. That kind of shift is never easy, especially in a market where stars are celebrated and scrutinized equally. There is also speculation about how players themselves might respond to this perceived ultimatum. Some might rally around Boone, seeing his harsh words as proof that he cares deeply and refuses to accept mediocrity. Others might feel alienated or disrespected, interpreting the language as a personal attack rather than constructive criticism. In a clubhouse full of pride, even a hint of public shaming can create lasting scars. The rumor suggests tense conversations between teammates, whispered alliances, and moments of self-reflection. For some, this could be a wake-up call, a reminder that talent alone is not enough. For others, it could deepen resentment, especially if they believe they are being unfairly targeted. This internal tug-of-war is what makes the story so compelling. It is not just about winning or losing, but about identity, respect, and belonging. Boone, in this speculative narrative, is gambling that the benefits of confrontation will outweigh the costs. It is a risky bet, but one that often defines leadership in high-stakes environments. Another angle that keeps circulating is the potential long-term impact on Boone's career. If this hardline approach leads to renewed unity and focus, he could be praised as a manager who finally addressed issues others were afraid to touch. If it backfires, he could be blamed for fracturing an already fragile group. The rumor frames Boone as someone who understands that his legacy is tied to moments like this, moments where comfort is sacrificed for conviction. For a former player who spent years navigating different locker rooms, this could be his ultimate test. The speculation paints him as aware of the risks, but unwilling to continue along a path that feels dishonest. Fans who appreciate authenticity tend to respect that, even when the outcome is uncertain. The story becomes a reflection of broader questions about leadership in modern sports, where managing personalities can be just as challenging as managing strategy. Boone's alleged words symbolize a clash between old-school accountability and contemporary sensitivities, making the rumor feel relevant beyond a single team. As the narrative grows, some suggest that the front office might quietly support Boone's stance while publicly maintaining neutrality. This dual approach would allow them to protect the brand while giving the manager room to act. In this speculative scenario, Boone is not acting alone, but as part of a larger, unspoken agreement that something must change. That possibility adds another layer of intrigue, suggesting that what fans see is only the tip of the iceberg. Decisions made behind closed doors, far from cameras and microphones, could reshape the roster and the culture in ways that only become clear much later. The rumor feeds on this uncertainty, encouraging fans to look for clues in every transaction, every press conference answer, every shift in tone. It transforms ordinary moments into potential evidence, keeping the conversation alive and constantly evolving. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. The emotional weight of the phrase attributed to Boone also invites debate about language and responsibility. Calling anything a cancer is extreme, and the rumor acknowledges that such words can wound deeply. Yet, in the hyper-competitive world of professional sports, extreme language is sometimes used to jolt people out of complacency. The speculation suggests Boone chose shock over subtlety because his subtlety had failed. That choice alone reveals a manager at a crossroads, willing to risk controversy for the sake of progress. Fans may disagree on whether that is admirable or reckless, but few can deny its impact. The story lingers because it feels like a moment of truth, real or imagined, where the mask slipped and raw frustration was revealed. In the end, this rumor functions less as a factual report and more as a mirror reflecting the anxieties and hopes of an entire fan base. It captures the fear that something is fundamentally wrong and the hope that decisive action can still fix it. Boone, as the central figure in this narrative, becomes a vessel for those emotions. Whether he truly said those words or not almost becomes secondary to what they represent. They symbolize a demand for accountability, a rejection of comfort, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable realities. That is why the story refuses to die. It taps into something deeper than a single moment, speaking to the eternal tension between talent and teamwork, patience and urgency, loyalty and honesty. And as long as that tension exists, this rumor will continue to echo through conversations, debates, and late-night monologues, shaping how people see the team and the man tasked with leading it forward. As the rumor stretches further, another interpretation begins to circulate among insiders who claim the alleged outburst was not just about discipline, but about fear. Fear of wasting a rare opportunity, fear of watching a talented group drift apart, and fear of becoming irrelevant in a place where relevance is demanded every single moment. In this speculative version, Boone's words were less an attack and more confession, a raw admission that the situation had grown beyond his comfort zone. The idea of two destructive influences suggests that the problem had been clearly identified for a long time, analyzed quietly, and tolerated longer than it should have been. That tolerance, according to the whispers, finally became unbearable. The locker room, once a place of shared purpose, allegedly started to feel divided into silent camps, each pulling in its own direction. Boone, standing in the middle of that divide, is imagined as realizing that silence was no longer neutral. It was complicit. This rumor paints a picture of a man choosing to confront the storm head-on, even if it meant being misunderstood. For fans, this angle adds a layer of tragedy to the story, turning Boone into a figure trapped between expectation and reality, forced to make brutal choices in an environment that rarely forgives hesitation. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.